before we get in this episode, can you do us a favor? Will you go ahead and subscribe to the channel?
Will you ring that notification bell?
And if you would, give this video a like. Well, enough of that mumbo jumbo. Let's get to the episode.
Let's talk developmentally speaking, glow up, and connecting through wrestling.
Hey everybody, I'm Morty.
And I'm Brian.
And on today's episode of Connecting Through Wrestling, we have a member of the Miserably Faithful, Sal Rinauro. Sal, how's it going?
Hey guys, how's it going? Great to be here. Was that the first question you warned me about?
Oh, the first... That was not the first question. I never thought about that. I always say, how's it going? It's the second question. Sal just blew my world up.
Yeah, you just booked the crap out of this already. Right now.
Man. Anyway, the now second question that I typically ask is, what made you get into professional wrestling?
Some stupidity. Some people call it heart. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I remember very vividly. I mean, it's been the one constant I've had in my life forever. I remember very vividly being in Miss Bradshaw's first grade class, and she would go around the classroom. What do you want to be when you grow up? You know, oh, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a policeman. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. You know, little Johnny wanted to be a dinosaur, and she was like, little Johnny better shot at being a dinosaur than a pro wrestler. Okay, cool. And I've watched all the Jurassic Park. I have not seen Little Johnny's name any of the crap. So take that, Miss Brown. It's just I had a real rough upbringing. Like, my childhood was worse, whatever. No need to go too deep into that. Wrestling was like the only thing that I had hold to, and Hulk Hogan's the one that drew my attention. Montan's the one that kept me tuning in, and it's just been it's the only thing I've ever wanted, and I love pro wrestling to my core.
And it's I find that to be a common answer we've had with childhood not being the greatest and clinging on to professional wrestling. My parents, they argued all the time, and I remember sitting and toning out the arguments and everything, and watching wrestling. So I can relate to not being great. Not getting too deep into it, but I think we can, connecting through wrestling, we can all connect with the fact that wrestling is an escape.
Yeah,
absolutely. The name of your show is so apropos because I'm a huge believer that, like, there's different strokes for different folks and all that, but like every walk of life has a wrestling something. Like, you don't have to be a diehard fan, but everybody has one wrestling story, and it's amazing some of the relationships I've had in my life just because this person went to a house show once as a kid, and wasn't a wrestling fan, but mommy got him tickets or daddy, whatever, but they have that one memory of the time they were at the grocery store and ran into Lex Luger or whatever, and that's one of the things that I always found so compelling and meaningful about pro wrestling. Is like, it talks to everybody. It relates to everybody. Rich, poor, African American, Asian, white, whatever. Like, pro wrestling, there's something there for you, and that's just part of the magic that the sport is.
Absolutely, and it comes from the fact that wrestling has been around forever, and take it back to people going to the Coliseums to watch gladiators. That was a little bit more serious back then, because people killed each other. But that's the same concept. People gathered around to watch physical entertainment and
And not to show my age, but that's about the time I started training. What?
okay, right, understandable, yeah, yeah, and so and you're talking about Hogan and Macho Man and I don't care who you are. If you were around in the 80s or the early 90s, you automatically know who Hulk Hogan is. Now, granted, there are kids now that have no idea who Hulk Hogan is. You say Hulk, they're like, oh, the big green guy. No,
Yeah.
no, no. Um, and
But know The Rock or those kids know John Cena. Like there's
that's
always,
what I was about to say.
yeah, there's always that guy, that even if it's just one, that there's a connection. Uh, I mean, like I remember the Attitude Era because so I never went to the same school consecutively as a child. Like third grade I went to one school, fourth grade I went to another school, fifth grade yada 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 yada, and then but everybody just knew I was a wrestling fan, because I'd wear a wrestling shirt or that's what I was doodling or that's what my presentations were about or whatever. And I remember being kind of ostracized for it just a little bit, just because he's the weird guy that likes pro wrestling. And then the Attitude Era hit, and then it was everybody wants to talk to me because I know like. Hey man, did you see what Stone Cold did last night? I said, buddy, I saw what Steve Austin did in '93 with Brian Pillman. Get out of my face.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. You know, so where did you get your start in wrestling?
So I often tell people do as I say and not as I did. I I all my training was just the wrong way. It's just it's if you need a template of don't do this, just do what I did. So I found a local show. Like even as a kid, like once I found the After Mags, my mind was blown because I grew up in California where it was a WWF territory. Like I didn't know there was other worlds out there until I stopped at the magazine stand and was like, oh, who's this? What's this Ric Flair guy? What's the oh my god, the
Mm-hmm.
Von Erichs. There's Continental, there's Florida. It's just like, oh my god, there's so much of this, and I couldn't consume enough pro wrestling. Uh, and then I found a local indie show that ran 2 miles from my house on Sundays, every other Sunday at the Boys and Girls Club. So the show started at 6. I was there at 11 a.m. What can I do to help? How can I will whatever you'll let me do, I'll be more than happy to do. And either I annoyed them into submission or they just needed a but they would let me help put up the ring and help set up the chairs, sell tickets, hot dogs and programs or whatever. And like I'm in hog heaven because like this is it, it's pro wrestling,
You're
right?
part of it.
And the only thing that and they 100% allowed it. Once the ring was up, if there wasn't anything I had to do pressing, I would be allowed to get in the ring. And so, and now, I'm 13 years old. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a wrestling ring. I've never wanted to be anywhere else in my life. Like, this is the best. And then some of the guys would be like, hey, let me try this.
Oh,
Hey, what?
you were the bump dummy.
Hey, yeah, no. And, I that's how I learned how to bump was,
Wait,
hey, tuck your chin or you're going to
at
die.
13 years old?
Yeah, at 13. Uh,
Wow.
and like, unfortunately, just because like I'm such a sponge for pro wrestling. Like nobody taught me how to do a collar and elbow tie up. I'd seen it 8 million times, so I just kind of, there's little nuances I didn't have down, but for the most part, like I knew how to collar and elbow tie up. I knew how to reverse a wrist lock. I knew how to reverse a hammer lock. My little brother and I used to do. We wrestled in our backyard, but it wasn't backyard wrestling.
Right.
Like we would we had two old mattresses, and we put some wood posts around the four corners, and then bungee cables, and that was our ring, But like
Awesome.
we would always like my favorite story is we would always fight over who we got to be because we were never like Sal the Crusher or whatever. It was well, I want to be Shawn Michaels. I want to be Razor Ramon. I want to be whomever. And again, I'm growing up in Southern California. We didn't have ECW. All I had was those aftermags.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see this crazy, long-haired, scarred-up dude upside down going through tables, and I was like, Sabu is God. We would the biggest fights we would get into was before our matches when we would fight over who got to be Sabu. Never have seen a match with this guy, but he was just like, look at this guy. He's got to be the man. He's in all the magazines. He's going through tables. Like, that's not a thing. But I would, and the stuff the guys would teach me, I'd pick up stuff from the guys, and they'd kind of, oh, well, do this and do this and do this. Like, okay, I will. And then I'd go home and practice it on my little brother, and that went on for a couple of years. And then one day they were doing a battle royal, and they were short. Said, hey, you mind throwing on a hood and being in the battle royal? Yes, I mind that. Of course I'm going to, yes. And then I just kind of hit the ground running from there. I was 15, and I did that. Then we came back, and I did a 6-man tag. And then, because I'm super smart, I have family. My grandmother and my grandfather both live in Georgia. And I was on my own already. I'd already been out of my house. I was crashing with a couple older friends that I knew. And I said, screw it. WCW's in Georgia. This is 1998. Said WCW's in Georgia. They like cruiserweights. I'm 5'7", 5'8". I don't think that growth spurt I'm wanting to get the 6'2's coming. My best bet's in the cruiserweight division, so I packed up what little stuff I had and moved cross country to Georgia so I could be the WCW cruiserweight champion.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, you said at the beginning that you did it all the wrong way, but in all reality, the way what I heard was you learned respect early, you paid your dues early.
Yes.
And yeah, maybe being 13 years old, getting bumped around by full-grown men, that's that might be frowned upon. But I mean, there's a lot to that. I mean, we've talked to guys who were in the business in the 60s and 70s, 80s, that back then they didn't smarten you up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They literally beat the crap out of you. And so it's sort of similar but different. In your case, I think you had a kind of an old school training starting out.
There's definitely an old school sense to it. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to, by the time I got to Georgia, I already had a couple matches under my belt, so I never had to go through like the schooling process. I kind of got in touch with the right people and started getting bookings. And I mean, 98% of my pro wrestling learning was on the job. I just, but there was definitely that old mentality of, I especially the first couple times I was in the ring with guys, I think it was, let's beat him up and see if he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 11 a.m. and Sunday morning, and here I am waiting on anybody to show up so I can help out again. And like I said, I think I kind of just wore him into submission. Like, all right, he's not going anywhere. We might as well do something with him.
Yeah, and I almost chuckled when you said that they had room in a battle royal, and they said, "Hey, put a hood on," because I know so many people that that was their first match. That
Yeah,
the same thing. Hey, put a hood on. We need you to go in there, take a few bumps, and get thrown out.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and like I can't say that was my first experience with wrestling. I started out as a manager. I've stayed a manager the whole time. I've been a manager for 12 years, but like I remember um, a few people coming to Supreme Wrestling in Madison that got in there was a training class and they trained, did their thing, and they were probably 16 years old. Their parents had signed off, of course, but you know, um, they their first things was, hey, go in there and listen to the older guys and just be safe. And then that whole training before that show was teaching them how to go over a top rope safe. And if they couldn't figure it out, we'd have one of the big guys just sit them over that top rope and then punch them. But they got to be in there and so I have so many things that you said that I can connect to in my brain with in my experience that I've seen. So you get to Georgia and you work for some independent stuff. Did you was the power plant around then? Did you go to the power plant?
It was, and so I looked up, and at the time, NWA Wildside, which is in northeast Georgia in the mountains, in a decrepit old shack that still runs today. That's just it's wild. Just I have so many memories there, but it was the WCW developmental. Uh, and so that was the place to be. Like if you wanna get noticed, you kind of got to find your way to Wildside. And I lucked up, and I started. I met up and became buddies with Jason Cross, who you guys might remember from the early TNA pay-per-views. He would do a shooting star leg drop. Just the most unreal athlete I've ever been around. Him and AJ Styles were neck and neck in Georgia Indies forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I will, to the day I die, will side with physically. Jason Cross is superior to AJ Styles in every way. It was just a superior athlete. He didn't have the desire. He didn't have the heart. Uh, didn't have the promo at all. Even early AJ was a better promo than Jason Cross, who is still a good friend of mine. And we're at the point now where he's on a no call list because I can't understand him. He's gone full boomhauer on me. So when he calls and say, "Man, like, dude, those aren't words. I love you. I'm interested. You're gonna have to text me because that's not human language." Uh, but I became buddies with Cross, and Cross was flirting with WCW at the time, and they actually signed him to. They had offered him a developmental deal, and so he was moving up to Atlanta. We were down in Macon, which is an hour and a half drive. He was moving up to Atlanta so he can go to the power plant. He had help. So I, brought him, helped move him to Atlanta. Uh, he was like, "Hey, you want to go to the power plant with me?" Of course. So I get there and I'm there maybe 5 minutes. All Orndorff's like, "Hey, who's this guy?" And he's like, "Oh, it's my buddy." He goes, "Who cares? It's your buddy. You're at work." It was one of those. He invited me. He didn't ask anybody to come. So I'm like, "Oh no." So I promptly got kicked out after about 5 minutes at the power plant the first time. Uh, but I ended up getting on with Wildside, and like I said, it was the WCW developmental. So like, and you name all those guys that started coming up in the latter part of WCW. Jindrax O'Hare's, uh, Lumbos, all Mike Sanders, Elix Skipper, Kid Romeo, all those guys were doing stuff at Wildside. On top of like David Flair would come in and do stuff at Wildside. Bob Sapp, like no. The first time I ever go to Wildside, like I said, it's this time. It used to be a schoolhouse back in Fox 5, and they converted it into a wrestling. To get the locker room, you have to walk up this, I mean, flight of wooden stairs. That's probably, you know, they were there when Moses was parting seas. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I walk up these crickety old stairs, and the first person I walk into is Bob Sapp. And keep in mind, I'm 16, 17 at the time. I'm probably 90 pounds soaking wet, and 60 of that is hair. Uh, and there's Bob Sapp sitting in a chair looking down at me to say hello because he's that big of a man. And I was just, God, what have I done? Uh, but I got in at Wildside. They would have their TV tapings on Saturdays, and then they would do a show every Friday, and it was the Friday Fantastic Friday show where it was if you were a body in the building that knew how to bump, they'd put you on the, and that's kind of just where you started with Wildside, and so I got on there, and they, I guess they liked me. So they started putting me on the TVs, and through that, I started to get to know some of these guys. And then I got an actual invite to the power plant. Uh, and I didn't, it's not like I went and got obviously I didn't get a contract or anything, but I got to do the full day workout, uh, which was a cool experience, and Terry Taylor was there that day, and everybody was very, very nice, as nice as you can be. Orndorff uh, was yelling at us during the drills and stuff, but I mean that's to be expected. It's not like he was just berating us because he had nothing better to do. But it was a surreal experience, and I genuinely think if WCW would have lasted a couple more years, I would have definitely spent more time at the power plant, and would have probably got to do Saturday nights and stuff like that. I know my name was on the list for future R&B security spots and stuff like that, but
Nice.
when the wheels fell off, they shot off really quick.
So after all this, where did you? What was your next move?
So like once WCW went under, Wildside was still kind of the place in the South to be, right? Because a lot of those guys that didn't get picked up by Vince
Mm-hmm.
still lived in Atlanta and were still trying to get some reps in, and so they had stuff to send or whatever. So I stayed with Wildside for a while, and even before then, I'd say 2000, I became really good friends with Jimmy Rave. Like he was my best friend. And Jimmy was the first guy amongst us younger guys. I've always said, like, the Wildside locker room, not that it was divided, but there was definitely there was the upper level guys, the guys that had been there and done that and seen this, uh, and then there was the younger guys. There was a core group of guys that, the oldest one of us was probably 18,
Mm-hmm.
that either trained at Wildside or, stumbled in like I did. And so we weren't the main event guys, but we were clearly the guys being groomed to help with the promotion in the future. And Jimmy Rave was one of those guys, part of our crew, and he was the first guy that was like, and this is where training would have helped me. Jimmy was the first guy to send out 8x10s and videos and stuff like that to other promoters, which blew my mind. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I kind of just lived in my own bubble and said, oh, well, I'm on this. Promoters are watching. Like, again, 16, 17 years old. I definitely didn't get the business acumen part of pro wrestling yet. But Jimmy started sending stuff off, and, then we started hearing the buzz about TNA and Ring of Honor. And so those kind of became we got to get on those. How do we figure that out? And fortunately, with TNA, it was in Nashville, which is a 5-hour trip from the front door. So like I was an extra at the first pay-per-view in Birmingham. But I mean, so many of the TNA explosions. those dark matches. I was all over that show. We used to Jerry Jarrett would be a gorilla when you would do those, right? And I kid you not, 3 weeks in a row, I did something with Jimmy. I either teamed with Jimmy or worked against Jimmy, or we had a 6-man scramble or whatever. But 3 weeks in a row, it was something involving Jimmy and I. Well, the first night through, uh, it was just the singles, and we get to the back. We felt good. And Jerry Jarrett doesn't look up from his Game Boy and goes, "Boys, that might have been the best explosion match in the history of explosion." Yeah, sweet, right? So the next week we do a tag match, and we're invited back. So I'm like, oh well, it had to have been right. Next week we do a tag match, and I think it was against the Naturals. I'm pretty sure it was the Naturals, and do the match, feel good, get to the back. Jerry Jarrett, without looking up, goes, "Boys, that might have been the best match in the history of explosion." All right, cool. Well, maybe I'm just really good, right? So the next, it's like a 6-man, and it's like me and Jimmy and Delirious, and Matt Seidel's in it. Shark Boy was in it. Maybe Tony Mamaluke. Anyways, we get to the back. Gary goes to look. Oh, was that the best match in the history of Explosion? And he goes, "Boys, it may have been."
Oh man, that's great. Wow,
Well,
that's good stuff.
we got that, and then I was trying to get on with TNA any way I could, but I was also definitely very very interested in getting on with Ring of Honor, because that was that was the place it was. TNA was cool, but like Ring of Honor had so much buzz. That was the place that we all wanted to be really bad, and Jimmy got on first, and he put in a couple good words, and he ended up getting me on too. So, which was awesome, which was unreal.
The early Ring of Honor.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just it was all. There would be times where I would just sit at the curtain and watch the show, before and after my match. I mean, we're Punk, Joe, Brian, Aries, and I mean the list goes on. Low Key, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I would sit at the curtain and just be like, "Oh my god, I hope they don't. Because they're paying me to do this. Like." One of these things is not like the other, and it's me. Like, these guys are amazing, Like, you've got Christopher Daniels there, just who's so incredibly giving and helpful, and we always had advice to share. And then I knew AJ. So, when AJ's there, I be an AJ. I had Jimmy. It was just. But like you just look in the ring at any juncture, hard you can look at the ring, see something you've never seen. It's just unreal, man, unreal.
See, that's where. So I got my start with Gabe after Ring of Honor when Evolve and Dragon Gate and all that. So I worked behind the scenes of the production and all kinds of stuff. So I know exactly what you're talking about. You're just sitting there watching, and there's all these people, and it's insane.
Yeah, Gabe threatened me with an Evolve spot early on. He told me initially the plan was he wanted to bring me in to be scrap to Kenny Dykstra's Scooby Doo. That was the original pitch to me, and I was like, okay, yeah, great,
Sure.
And I forget what something happened with Kenny where he wasn't going to use Kenny regularly, and a lot of my stories with Gabe in this way. Sal, I want to use you. Get on the back burner. I'll be in touch. And it just didn't work out. And then life kind of happened. And I took time off from track. So the Evolve thing never worked out for me. But Gabe was always super. Even when I run, like when I go down to do NXT stuff. Still have a good talk, chuckle. No hard feelings towards Gabe. I know how like.
So, and totally unrelated, who's your hairstylist?
Oh, I've got. Well, this is kind of an inspiration. I was goofing off one day, and I put in the side ponytail, and I cut the corner, and my daughter just looked at me horrified. Said, "What are you doing, Daddy?" I was like, "I don't know." And the look on her face, I was like, "Let me put that in my back pocket." Uh, so when I started the thing with Mitchell, uh, Sinister Minister at NWA, I said, I don't something triggered in my brain. I was like, oh yeah. So now it's kind of it's my tribute to my daughter. It's a little nod and a wink to Lily, and it's just fun. It's just I'm a real big toy guy, and so anything I can do. Raven taught me this early on. Anything you can do where a kid's walking down the toy aisle and will stop and look at your figure, we'll do that. So this is one of those things that I know why, I understand why, but nobody else is doing this. so it's a little eye catching. So yeah, a lot of frizz and
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
and there's a great lady at the NWA, their hair and makeup lady, who first time I sat down, I said, this is your palette. Knock yourself out. She goes, for real? And I was like, crazier the better. And so like that, like she'll tell people all the time, like, oh, Sal's my favorite client because she gets to have fun. It's not, when she's doing the girl's hair, she's got to get the right waves. She's got to, this, that, and the third. And with me, the worse the better. So
Absolutely. So, what does the future hold for Sal in the NWA?
let's say gold. I hope a lot of gold. Right now, we've got the miserably faithful going on. Me, Gags the Gimp, Judias, Max the Impaler.
Max is scary. Like,
Yeah, Max is awesome.
yeah, like, I was on a show with Max a while back, and like, I would not get in that ring. Like, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, no, Max is legit, but like unreal how quickly we bonded. I the first time Max came in one of the power trip shows in Kentucky, and Max had nothing to do with any of us. And as soon as I saw the announcement, I called up Judiah, who I've known since '04. Yeah, I think it was '04 when we met. I called him up and said, Max will be with him. And he goes, oh, they're going to put Max in the group? And I said, oh, no, nobody's confirmed that. Just look at Max and look at our group. I promise you, Max is going to be in our group.
That was that was at Power Trip, right?
Yeah, that was a power trip.
In Oak Grove. I was there actually.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I was the only person in the crowd with a sign.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I hate that signs are going away. I love signs. Those old Attitude Era crowds.
Gotta get his shit in.
Huh?
You had to get your shit in.
I did. I had to get my shit in with my sign. It said developmentally speaking. It had a big old YouTube symbol on it. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful.
definitely.
But yeah, we get to the next set of TVs in Nashville, and sure enough, Minister pulls me aside and goes, my boy, what do you know about Max? I said, joining the group? I will be managing her tomorrow. I said, I'm part of the planet, but I know a miserably faithful person when I see one.
Yeah. So, Gags the Gimp. Is it acne? It's acne, isn't it? That's why the mask.
It's a train wreck down there. It's
a damn train wreck.
It's a damn train wreck. Okay.
At the end of the Michael Keaton Batman, where Joker's face is melting, think of that, but worse.
Oh, that's rough. That is real rough.
Yeah, don't want any part of that. Dads wants to go out without a mask. It's my request. Like nobody.
Keep it on. I gotta keep my appetite. Keep it on. Right. Right. So, I want to thank you for coming on here. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. Been fun talking to you, and we'd be happy to have you on here again for sure. And yeah, just thank you for what you do. I find since day one I have found you very entertaining.
Thank
You know, from your pal Sal and all that. It was great, for sure.
Yeah, no, like I said, I've been fortunate to. This will be next year. I think is my 25th anniversary in wrestling. Quarter of a century, which is unreal because it seems like it's been about 24 minutes.
Right.
I've been extremely blessed, and hopefully, I got another 25 years in me. As long as the old body holds up, we're rocking and rolling. I had a buddy pull me aside after the show I did Saturday, and said, "How do you do it?" And, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're the only person I know that's still getting better after all these years." I said, "You don't know many people. That's your problem. Really need to be friends. This is an issue." But no, he was like, "It's just, you have an uncanny drive that, and that's my thing is like, I never settle. I can't settle. There's too much to do and too many opportunities out there waiting to be taken. So why not be the one to take it, right?"
Absolutely.
But no, I appreciate you guys inviting me on. I'd be more than happy to come back on. We've got we maybe before Hard Times 3, November 11th in Louisiana. Maybe we could schedule something before then. If not, that's my cheap plug for Hard Times 3.
There you go. For sure. Well, thank you again, and you have a great one.
Awesome. You guys too. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, it's Morty.
It's Brian.
And thank you for watching today's episode of Developmentally Speaking.
If you could, please click that subscribe button.
And don't forget to punch that bell icon so you can get notified whenever we go live or drop a new video every Monday. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next
Developmentally Speaking.